The 580 Sports Talk Chiefs Instant Reaction post-game show is live. I'm Brendan Dworzinski along with Dan Lucero. The Kansas City Chiefs winners over the Las Vegas Raiders. Always feels good to win on Raiders Week. 31-17, a good bounce-back win for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'll tell you what, this one looked pretty damn bleak in the first quarter and a half or so. It was ugly, ugly, ugly. The offense was all out of sync. The defense was getting gashed by Aiden O'Connell and an interim offensive coordinator. And then something turned on. And then the harsh feelings from Monday night or whatever it was, the hangover from that game on Monday, that all evaporated. And the Chiefs looked as good as they have looked all season long after they went down 14-0, which sounds a lot like the championship Chiefs of the last few years. In fact, looking their best after they went down early on. Let's just start with some overall thoughts on the game, Dan. I mean, I was thinking the main topic when we saw the Chiefs go down 14-0, even after the Raiders had missed a field goal, I was thinking, okay, how do I ask, where is the panic meter right now for this Chiefs team? And then they went out and they played as well as they have all year. Mahomes looked fantastic after the slow start. Pacheco was good. Rashee Rice, I think, finally had his true number one receiver kind of breakout game. What stood out the most to you about this win positively after coming away with such an impressive bounce back?
I think broadly it's that they looked like the championship Chiefs that we've come to know and see over the last handful of years. That felt very much like a lot of Chiefs games that we have seen in this Mahomes era, this Super Bowl era, in a way that a lot of the wins this year haven't felt that way. And I think the biggest reason for it was once this offense found a rhythm, it stayed in rhythm. And that was borne out by going out and opening the second half with a touchdown. The first points in the second half since week 7. And then after the field goal cut it to 21-17, an opportunity to extend the lead. Even in games the Chiefs have won this year, they have missed their chances to put teams away with their offense, to go on that soul-crushing drive, to Mahomes makes big plays or Kelsey makes a big play and you just bury a team with the offense and you push that lead back to 2 scores and that's all she wrote. That has been sorely lacking this season from the Chiefs until today. They went out after the field goal, pushed it out to 28-17, and that was the ball game right then and there. As in the second half, the Chiefs made the adjustments they needed to make. They were much better at the point of attack, putting the Raiders in more stressful third down situations, and then they were able to really tee off on O'Connell with some different pass rushes and concepts in that third and fourth quarter to really keep them off the board. 14-0 was a bleak start. They looked listless. They looked slow. They looked like a team that was maybe ready to let that Monday night home loss to the Eagles beat them twice.
Yep.
And then they outscored the Raiders 31-3 the rest of the way. They stepped on the accelerator. They got to that gear, that Chiefs gear that we have seen them get to time and time again. But we're beginning to wonder, I think fairly, did this team have that gear? They proved today that they do.
You know, the funny thing about it is that a handful of times recently, the Chiefs have had that early drive that looks good. Monday night, they have the early drive that looks good. The Miami game over in Frankfurt, first drive, they looked incredible. And after that, it was, what the hell are you guys doing? So it was kind of the opposite, the incredibly slow start. And then after that, the switch flipped on. I think for me, the biggest thing, and we talk about this all the time, whether we're doing the NFL or Major League Baseball or college sports or high school sports, you want your big players to show up in big moments. And this was one of the few times this year, and I'm ignoring the Bears game because the Bears are pathetic, but this is one of the few times all year when all the stars on both sides of the field played like superstars. Offensively, Mahomes was great. The slow start, kind of iffy. He was fantastic in this game. Travis Kelce, not the greatest game of his life, but he still had 91 yards and multiple receptions in the game. He was very good in this one. Had that one, the phenomenal Mahomes throw when he was under pressure, kind of sliding off to the side, throwing downfield. I mean, Kelsey was really good in this game. Pacheco had the exact same stat line he has every single week. Every week, it's 13 to 16 rushes for 50 to 70 yards and a touchdown. This week, he had a pair of them on the ground. He just does the same thing consistently every week. He was good. And like I mentioned at the top, Rashee Rice, in moments today, when you said, hey, Chiefs got to make a play through the air, Who was it they were looking for? It was number 4, and he came up big a couple of different times. That is something this team has desperately been hoping to find with its pass catchers not named Travis Kelce. They got that from Rashee Rice today. Defensively, Chris Jones, big play late. George Karlaftis, big sack late. Trent McDuffie is an all-pro. I'm willing to just say it right now. If you're not going to vote for him for all-pro, you're not watching, because he has been that good this year. Snead came up with some good coverage today. They showed the graphic on CBS, a shutout of Devontae Adams in the second half, which, if you saw the first half when he had 5 for 73, you thought, oh God, this is going to be one of those games when the dude on the other side of the field wearing 17 looks like a Hall of Famer. And he did for a half, and they completely shut him down in the second half. Tranquil came up with a bunch of big plays in this game. Everybody stepped up all at the same time. And I think, we always say complementary football. I think in this case, it's almost more like synchronicity. The fact that everyone was on the same wavelength at the same time propelled this team to a level that we have seen very few times this year.
Yeah, they looked in rhythm. They looked in synchronous, I think is a really nice way to say it, particularly on offense. Things just seem to work. And we have talked so much about the wide receiver room this year, and they went into this game with the shortest wide receiver room they'd had all year, right? McCole Hardman's out for we don't know how long, at least 4 weeks. He's on IR. Kadarius Toney goes down, and didn't know that until Saturday, but he obviously did not play in this game. You were down to a smaller group, and it was pretty clear that you weren't going to, get a whole lot probably out of Richie James fresh off of IR. So you had who you had. You had Rashee Rice, you had Justin Watson, you had Sky Moore, and you had MVS. You had those guys. Those are the guys running the routes. Those are the guys with the snap counts that get to feel a little bit in rhythm themselves. And I don't think it's a mistake that the volume of the targets went to Rashee Rice because he's been their best, and he was their most productive. A 100-yard game for him, and doing it in all kinds of different ways too. It was not just the quick hitter and make it happen after the catch, but the crossing route for the touchdown. And we got to give MVS credit for the block. We have talked as mean as we have been, deservedly, about MVS and his hands. One thing he's always been good at is blocking downfield. And he threw a great block to help spring Rashee Rice for that touchdown. But that's the yak ability down the field, and the sideline ball that he went up and got as well and got both feet down. That was the total package from Rashee Rice. We haven't seen a Chiefs wide receiver play a game like that. Since Tyreek Hill left, I don't think we've seen a receiver in the last 2 seasons play quite like that. And that was extremely exciting to see from Rashee Rice. And I think the shortening of the wide receiver rotation may have been helpful in getting those guys in rhythm and getting Mahomes in rhythm with the pass catchers.
I wanted to get to a couple of points here that have already popped up in our YouTube comments. And if you are watching along, please feel free on Facebook or YouTube to leave a comment for us here on our Chiefs Instant Reaction Show. From our pal Mark says, Furious George was indeed furious. Yeah, I mean, he was great in this game. That defensive line was awesome. He comes up with the clutch play late. And Vance also adds, at least the Chiefs scored in the second half. They scored multiple times in the second half. Even that is encouraging. They scored more in the second half than they did in the first half. Amazing. Everything is upside down. Cats and dogs living together. But that's important. And I think it is important to note. And we have, I think, fairly been critical of a lot of things with the offense this year because it has not been up to Chiefs standards. Relative to the rest of the NFL, still pretty good. Relative to what the Chiefs have done since 2018, though, not quite up to snuff in that regard. And I think it is still fair to say that at this point of the year, you can show growth in certain areas. And I'm not trying to make the Raiders out to be the Eagles or out to be the 49ers or a team like that that's going to contend for a Super Bowl, because they're not. But in the NFL, if you want to prove that you're better than someone, you want to prove that you're a really good, really great team, you should beat up on lesser teams. And like you said, the Chiefs ended this game on a 31-3 run. And I understand that it still looks like 17 on the scoreboard for the Raiders. They scored really quickly early on and then did jack nor squat the rest of the game. That to me is impressive for this Chiefs team. That to me is showing continued improvement, continued growth for this Chiefs team that has had a problem with chemistry, that has had a problem with development, that has had a problem with the pass catcher rotation, as you laid out. Being able to do all of that and continue to show that and get better as we now get into a difficult stretch of the schedule because guys are banged up. You've been playing for a long time. You're looking out for the postseason, all of that. You've got a team coming up next Sunday night that I'm still not going to say is good, but is playing better and is playing confidently. You need games like this going forward if you want to prove that you're a Super Bowl contender. I think the Chiefs did that in this game. The other thing, too, that I wanted to note, specifically about the defense, but I think the offense gets credit for this, too. We haven't seen from the defense a lot of need to be resilient over the course of the year because they've just kind of beaten teams' brains in. Like even in the Lions game in week 1 or the other losses over the course of the year, there wasn't a lot where, oh man, this defense has to bounce back. They need to bow up. They need to, show some toughness, show some grit, because they've kind of been doing that from the opening kickoff every game this season. They got hit in the mouth and they responded. They did not go down to the canvas. They punched right back. And again, you give up 3 points for what was a majority of the game at that point. That's a pretty good defensive effort. So it was encouraging for me, at least, to get to see the defense in a different kind of scenario, because things aren't going to be as straightforward as this offense stinks, go pound them when you get to the divisional round, AFC Championship game, possibly a Super Bowl. So to see them in a different kind of situation, a different kind of environment, I thought was an encouraging, again, step for this defense.
Yeah, problem solving on the fly, right? And that's kind of what this Chiefs defense did. They, after the long run by Jacobs that made it 14-0, they gave him crumbs the rest of the game. They were a lot better at the point of attack. They rallied to the ball. They, again, getting into that 3rd and long, because the Raiders are a lousy 3rd down team. Mitch Holtz has said it over and over again on the radio broadcast. It's one of the worst 3rd down teams in football, and they were 5 for their first 5 on 3rd down, scored their first touchdown on a 3rd down play because they're in 3rd and manageable, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2. That opens up your playbook and gives you a lot of opportunities to make some plays. And that was what the Raiders did. But here in the second half of the game, what you saw was the Chiefs defense make the adjustments and force them into 3rd and much longer and make Aiden O'Connell beat you on a 5 or a 7-step drop and a route concept down the field. And the Chiefs were able to defeat that pretty handily on the defensive side. It was a much better defensive effort. It's a TCB game. I've talked about those a lot with the Chiefs over the years. TCB, take care of business. When you play an inferior team, and the Raiders, though improved, though they are playing much harder for Antonio Pierce than they were for Josh McDaniels. They are a better team today than they were a month ago. Flat out. And
I think, unless it's me that's crapping out, I think we lost Dan momentarily here. So we'll get Dan back in just a second, froze up on his end. But I do think it is important to note that this team has shown, this Raiders team has shown that they're much improved. They've got, a new swagger back. And to take on a team that is playing with confidence, that is playing with energy, that is an important step. And I know we've got Dan back and ready to go now. That's not all that point was about, Dan. The fact that the Raiders are playing better, that they are, a refocused team, a more energized team. But there is some value in beating a team like that. And again, I mentioned the game against Green Bay coming up next Sunday. You're taking on teams that have gotten better, that are playing with renewed energy, that are playing with a renewed confidence. Aiden O'Connell might not be great, but you can tell this Raiders offense at least is buying more into what he's selling than they were with Jimmy Garoppolo. So it means something to beat a team like that essentially is playing with nothing to lose, even with more than a month to go in the season.
Yeah, and to beat them by 2 scores in their house, that's what you go and do. I mean, that's what you want to go and do. If you are a good team, if you are a great team, if you want to be a championship caliber team, it's all about taking care of business. And the Chiefs did exactly that against an improving Raider team who, if the Chiefs had caught them a month ago, probably a much more lopsided game. The Raiders are improved. They're playing harder, but big win in that regard, I think, for the Chiefs. And one they had to have because, speaking of teams that are improving, if the Chiefs had lost this game, their lead in the division would be down to 1 over the Red Hot Broncos, who they're a real football team. At this point, that loss to them looks better and better every week because they're doing it to everybody now. And Yeah, I mean they did they put 29 points on the Browns today, and some of that's a safety, and they knocked the Browns back up out of the game. But like they're winning, they're piling up wins. They're in the hunt for a
Yep.
playoff spot. So if the Chiefs had lost, it'd be a 1-game lead in the division, and you don't have the tiebreaker over the second place team head to head because you split that season series. So this became a must win as it was happening. And the Chiefs went and they got it done. And it's what they've done year over year, particularly coming off a loss. We always expect that they play better coming off a loss. They generally do. But there were some things that were fair to question about this team. They answered a lot of those questions, I think, today with their effort. I think you leave this game as a Chiefs fan feeling a lot better about where things are going from here.
And the other thing too, because I still have enough confidence in this Chiefs team, they would win enough games to win the division, even if things got a little bit hairy here with 6 weeks to go. Almost more importantly, though, when you want to talk about playoff standings, AFC East, your division leader, the Dolphins, 8-3. AFC North, division leader, the Ravens, 8-3. AFC South, after another win today, the Jaguars, 8-3. I think the Chiefs are better than all of those teams, but you don't want to be the number 2, the number 3, dare I say the number 4 seed in the AFC. They would have been the undisputed 4th seed in the AFC if they had lost this game today with 6 weeks to go. And there are some tough games, but certainly some winnable games still left for Miami, for Baltimore, and for Jacksonville. So to stay on pace with them, it's kind of, to me, like the NFL standings version of if he's even, he's leaving. Like if the Chiefs are tied with you, you can probably imagine that over a long enough timeline, they're going to end up surpassing you because of their coaching, because of their talent, because of just the organization that's in place. So for the Chiefs to keep that pace, not have to work from behind still to come back in the standings, I think that holds a lot of value as we get closer and closer to the postseason. I know a lot of folks around dinner time right now. We've got Sunday Night Football coming up. The afternoon game's wrapping up right now as well. Eagles-Bills has been a bonkers game in Philadelphia. So let's get a quick final thought on this game tonight from the Chiefs. An impressive win. They needed to get it. I think vibes-wise, they had to have this one, and they ended up getting it.
Yep, they get it, and they stay on top of the AFC, and they may have found their number 1 wide receiver in Rashee Rice. Travis Kelce played well. First good game in a while for him, as Vance points out in the YouTube comments.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for sure. You look forward for the Chiefs, and they have the easiest strength of schedule down the stretch for any team in the conference. Final 6 games, they have the easiest strength of schedule for any of the AFC contenders based on winning records. The only team with a winning record they're going to play the rest of the way, as it stands right now, is Buffalo, and Buffalo's 25 seconds away from a massive win over Philadelphia. Philadelphia's showing how hard it is to play be in heavyweight fights back-to-back weeks, and they might be about to lose unless Jake Elliott can bang one in on a sloppy field from 60 yards to tie this game at the end of regulation. We may react to that live, who knows? But 59 yards, sorry. But still, I think the fact that the Chiefs' path opens up for them, they got a win they had to have. They maintain control of the division. They maintain control of the AFC, and they did it in such a way that I think gives confidence moving forward.
I think that's an important point you just made, as I know we're both.
He made the field goal. Right, holy cow.
Hey, that is Lyons Township High School toughness from Jake Elliott. What do he and I have in common? We graduated from Lyons Township High School in 2013, and we sat next to each other in freshman English in 9th grade. How about that from Jake Elliott? But this is a great example, and I think the point you just made about how hard it is to be in heavyweight fights in back-to-back weeks, that's, again, why I think it was so important to be able to win this game, to be able to keep pace with those other teams in the AFC. Because even if, like we talked about this past week on 580 Sports Talk, maybe the very tippy top of the AFC is not great, but it is deep. And any of those teams in the middle or top of the pack, any given week, you realistically could say, yeah, they could beat you. On the right day, they could absolutely beat you. Chiefs already beat the Jaguars this year. This is a different Jaguars team now than they were in week 2. The Ravens have the ability to do it. The Dolphins, certainly, if they play their best, they've got the ability to do it. Buffalo, they've still got Josh Allen. They've still got, I don't think enough dudes, but they've still got enough dudes on the field that make you think they could win any game, even if I don't think they're going to make it to a Super Bowl this year. So you've got to be able to prove that we can win these kind of games. We can win these tough ones, and we can do the little things to maybe swing a result that we didn't see on Monday against Philadelphia. You bounce back, you show toughness, resilience today. You get a big dominant win over Las Vegas, and you've got good vibes going into Sunday Night Football next week against Green Bay on the road. Also significant to note. We will talk more about this game and all the action from the weekend. A huge KU win over Cincinnati on Saturday, a devastating K-State loss in a truly bananas game in Farmageddon. We'll get to that, all the action from the high school football state championship games on Saturday, all that and more coming up on 580 Sports Talk Monday from 2 until 6. So join yours truly, join Dan and Jake LeBon. We'll be with you on Monday for that on 580 WIBW. But until then, to wrap up our Chiefs instant reaction post-game show, the Kansas City Chiefs knock off the Las Vegas Raiders 31-17. They improved to 8-3 on the year. We will talk to you guys coming up on Monday. More about this and so much more on 580 Sports Talk.